Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the September 13, 2021 meeting of the Ann Arbor City Council. Would our clerk please read the order and notice of call of special session?
Notice is hereby given that an electronic special session of the City of Ann Arbor City Council will be held Monday, September 13th, 2021 at 6:00 p.m. for the following purpose. Consider a resolution concerning the interim city administrator search process.
Thank you. If you're able, please rise and join us for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would our clerk please call the roll of council?
Councilmember Hayner,
Here.
Councilmember Dish, absent. Councilmember Griswold,
Here.
Councilmember Song.
Here, Ann Arbor.
Thank you. Councilmember Grand,
Here.
Councilmember Medina,
Here in Ann Arbor.
Mayor Taylor,
Here in Ann Arbor.
Councilmember Iyer,
Here in Ann Arbor.
Councilmember Nelson,
Here in Ann Arbor.
Councilmember Briggs,
Here in Ann Arbor.
Mayor Ramlawi, Mayor, we may have lost Councilmember Ramlawi. I thought he was here.
He was a moment ago.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you. May I have a motion, please, to approve the agenda? Moved by Councilmember Griswold, seconded by Councilmember Medina. Discussion of the agenda. All in favor? Opposed? The agenda is approved. DC1, resolution concerning interim city administrator search process. Moved by Councilmember Griswold, seconded by Councilmember Iyer. Discussion, please, of DC1. Mr. Postman, do you want to lead us off?
Yes, Mayor. For the benefit of the council and the public, you've asked me to do a number of things this summer involving this search process. And the by council resolution 2 weeks ago, with the assistance of Mr. Earl from a recruitment agency, GovHR, I brought to the admin committee 2 weeks ago a list of possible interim candidates. These interim candidates ranged from candidates who had experience in smaller cities, cities less than the size of Ann Arbor, and one larger. At that meeting, there was an interest in the council, in the admin committee, about having input or an option with a candidate that had more experience than in a city much larger than in Ann Arbor. And Mr. Earl was put to that task and did, in fact, over the next week, had prior contact with a candidate that fit that description. And so a range of candidates were discussed at the last admin meeting, and a resolution came out of that meeting with two possible candidates, one with big city experience, that is Mr. Milton Duhoney, and another candidate, which was Peter Burchard, who had prior experience in a city in Illinois, Naperville, a little larger than Ann Arbor. So those were the candidates that the admin committee brought forward for your consideration tonight, about a process to look at those candidates, but also to further evaluate whether there'd be a fit with the council. Obviously, that would entail a process of interviewing with the council in a public interview, but there's some discussion about perhaps input from leadership or other staff during this time period. And so that's what you have before you. And I have also been asked whether or not, even if the admin committee brought forward two candidates, whether or not, if you had a preference for one candidate, whether you would have to interview more than one candidate. And the answer to that is no. Certainly, if there is an interest in having a candidate who came from a larger place, that could be determinative at this point. Or if you were looking for a candidate that came from a similar size, that could certainly be a consideration. And so the search process, I know there was a question about that. The search process in part would depend on whether or not you were moving forward with two or one candidate, and I can address that at a later time. But from the admin committee, you have before you two resumes, and I appreciate the work of Mr. Earl in identifying these candidates from all across the United States and in Michigan. These are the two that we've brought forward to the council tonight to discuss a possible interim external candidate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Poston. Mr. Earl, are you keen to say something? Or do you have? Are you here for questions?
I'm here for questions, but I appreciate the opportunity to say that we're happy to be associated with the city of Ann Arbor and to present you with candidates that we feel are established local government professionals and can assist the city during this interim period for you.
Excellent, thank you. For my part, I'm grateful for the work done by Mr. Earl, you and your group, and of course the city attorney's office through Mr. Postman. It has been invaluable up and down the line. I've distributed to Ms. Beaudry two proposed amendments to the resolution before. One which I suspect will require a little conversation, the other perhaps a little bit more so. Ms. Beaudry, have you been able to forward those yet?
I'm sending them right now.
Thank you very much. Because I tend not to offer amendments, I guess what I'll ask is that if someone could please offer the second amendment first. That is, as Mr. Postman indicated, the administration committee limited, not by I think intention, but just by by nomenclature, limited staff review to the executive team. But upon reflection, it seems to me that we shouldn't be so constraining, and if there are other staff members for whom it's appropriate to engage, that we should give them the opportunity to do so. And so I'd ask for an amendment to add a third bullet to the September 14, September 23 section, third bullet reading, a process for staff participation and involvement. May I have a motion, please? Moved by Councilmember Medina, second by Councilmember Grand. Is the addition of that bullet friendly to the body? Councilmember Raleigh, are you looking to have a conversation about the addition of that bullet? Councilmember Ramlani.
Thank you. I guess I'd just like to know, maybe not in exact detail, what that process would be. And I know that we are under a time crunch of sorts. And if maybe we can have a better sense of what the timeline is of that process and what that process would be in a nutshell, so just have a better comfort with approving this amendment.
By the way, Mr. Postman, do you want to supplement?
Yeah, I think the process could be left up certainly to with input from the admin committee tomorrow, for example, and input from the the acting city administrator and the HR director. The process ordinarily would be actually a Zoom type interview that would provide certainly with both the executive team and staff, if that's the desire of the council, to have some ability to meet the individual or individuals and to have some understanding. It would really be the idea it would benefit both the candidates to understand what we have here in the city, both as a council, an executive team, and staff interest. And it would be probably a question and answer over Zoom. And it could be done and set up expeditiously by our HR director. And it could provide any feedback to the council that you wish to have. And so that could be discussed more fully tomorrow at the admin committee if you like. But that would be the general sense of it. And it could be done promptly and efficiently over the next 10 days or 8 days, whatever.
Councilor Griswold, is your hand up for this purpose?
It was for a general comment, not for
Okay.
this amendment.
Thank you. Councilmember Mlawi, I lowered your hand in the ordinary course, but then did you re-raise it?
Well, I did, and you know, I appreciate Mr. Postma's explanation of what the possibilities are. I would have more comfort in supporting this if I knew exactly what that prescription was at this point. I don't think I'll uphold the process here in voting for it. But I'd rather have these things fleshed out more before they come to the floor.
Well, I mean, let me flesh it out. It would be as to the exact questions and answers that are going to be asked. That's not been done, but it would be in a question and answer format. And it would be relevant things that would certainly for the council, those things might, things that are important to you to get an understanding, and further input from the leadership team and from the staff added portion. So as to the exact questions that are going to be asked, that was not brought forward to you, in part because that could be fleshed out very easily depending on number one, if you have one or two candidates, and second, now you've added the staff. And so the exact nature of those questions might depend on the input that we have here tonight from the council, or further from the admin committee. So it's similar to things that we've done in the past as to the format. As to the specific questions, it would depend on a number of factors.
Thank you.
Councilmember Nelson.
Excuse me. My support of the First Amendment, or I should say the Second Amendment, actually depends very much on the nature of the First Amendment, because it is not clear to me what the result of a survey would be if you only have one candidate. What do you foresee as the fallback option? I mean, what is I guess I'm trying to understand what the purpose of a survey is if you only have one option.
That's exactly my point on the issue of what it would look like. If there were two candidates, it would be somewhat comparative, I believe, or at least a rating of some sort. If there's one candidate, it would be much different, and it would be more in line with I don't want to say meet and greet, but an opportunity to understand the attributes and the character of the candidate. And it would also give the candidate an opportunity to understand the present concerns of the council, the leadership team, and whatever staff was deemed appropriate to be there.
Well, I don't want to put too sharp a point on it, but we are anticipating making somewhat indefinite the current arrangement. And so to have only one option and then say, okay, your option is to accept or reject, the path forward in rejecting that option is to continue with the status quo. And so that just am I misunderstanding?
I think that you would, it depends how you did that. If in fact you went with one candidate initially, and for some reason there was not a fit there is no prohibition for you to then go to a second candidate This is a little different than a permanent search in that some of these candidates, this is what they're doing on an interim basis. This is what they, it is not that if you didn't select them as initially, that they would then say, I'm not interested in being a quote, second candidate. And so you have a number of options afterwards.
Okay, thank you.
I do not think you would be limited to, when you say the status quo, you're talking about, because the purpose of this exercise is to get an interim external candidate. And if you're talking about the status quo, we don't have a external candidate. And so I think that that is, would be completely up to the council.
Councilmember Hayner.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I apologize. I have a really poor connection, so I might have missed this, but so we're down to one candidate, and how did that come to be? Through this resolution, or did I miss the explanation for that? Did one of the candidates withdraw?
No?
No, that is Mr. Postma.
We're not down to one candidate at all. At this point, the admin committee has brought you 2 candidates for your consideration. And the proposed resolution has you interviewing both candidates with a process if that's what you wanted to do. And that came forth from the admin committee. But certainly there's no prohibition, and I think it was wise.
I'm speaking to this amendment, though. The amendment is saying we're only going to interview one.
No, the amendment that was brought forward is the, if you will, number 2, which I thought would be simple, and that is to add a third bullet, a process for staff participation and involvement.
What's number 1? You're not bringing forward number 1?
That is draft text, and I've not yet asked for it to be brought forward.
Okay.
Do you have further questions?
No, so we're voting on the addition of a bullet point.
That's correct. Councilmember Griswold.
As a member of the administration committee, I thought we had an excellent process. Mr. Earl exceeded all of my expectations. We ended up with 2 candidates, both exceptional candidates. And so I'm troubled because the second amendment that would require staff participation and involvement, I would definitely support that if there are 2 candidates that we're getting feedback from. But if we're just bringing forward 1 candidate, then it seems somewhat insincere to go through a lengthy interview process when there's only 1. So I guess I'll speak more to the First Amendment when it's on the table.
Councilmember Amlani.
I make a motion to postpone the Second Amendment until the First Amendment is discussed. After the vote on the first, I'd like to postpone this amendment until we discuss the other one.
For my part, this is the First Amendment is the direction that I think we ought to go. I'm comfortable with it. I think that the gentleman's qualifications speak for themselves. If it's going to be the subject of controversy, this is not an issue that I think we really need to spend too much conversation over. I'm content to not have it brought, although I think it wise.
So I mean, are you withdrawing the other amendment,
Well, I've not. The amendment has not been. The amendment has not been provided. More accurately, the amendment has not been moved or seconded, so there is no amendment. There is a text which has been delivered to you, which I think wise and useful, but it is not an amendment. So because it has not been moved or seconded, so there is no amendment with respect to reducing the number of interviewees from 2 to 1.
So
it
then
may come to pass. I don't need to have it brought forward, but no. So that is the answer to that question.
Is there a second to my postponing the amendment that's on the floor right now?
Seconded by Councilmember Griswold, postponing an amendment till which meeting, Councilmember?
Well, it's just to see what's going to go on with the other amendment. I mean, it's
No,
just,
so
it
that's not
has
the-
material relevance. We can't make decisions like this.
I don't think we can postpone amendments within a meeting. The amendments on the floor, you can postpone the matter in its entirety if you wish. But I don't think you can postpone consideration of a specific amendment
Then I
pending some other
postpone,
conversation that may or may not exist.
then I postpone the whole matter till next council meeting on the 20th.
Is there a second? The proposed postponement dies for want of a second. Councilmember Adino. On the amendment.
Thank you. I guess I'm trying to figure out, I guess, a little bit about the struggle here. For me, I am interested in hearing staff feedback regardless of the number of candidates. I think whether or not it's a comparative process, I think it could be a comparative process where, frankly, neither candidate moves forward, right? Like the outcome could still be the same, where we could choose not to select either of the candidates we bring forward. We could choose to select one. Whether we bring one or two, we're ultimately looking for feedback on whether or not that person will, one, have the qualifications to operate the city effectively on an interim basis, but also I think for my sake, hearing how they would fit and lead staff is important to me. Whether there is, whether there are multiple candidates or a single one, I think, for me, it would be helpful to know how staff feels about that candidate or a multitude of candidates. So I will support this, and I am interested to hear if there is another conversation more about the mayor's thinking on that as well.
Councilmember Briggs.
Thank you. Yes, I would. I concur with everything that Councilmember Redina just said in terms of supporting this, whether there's one or two candidates. I also am interested in getting staff's feedback in terms of bringing in an external candidate as well. I think that it is challenging. There are aspects of bringing in an external interim city administrator that are it is work for staff as well. And so I am curious to within this process, I'll also get some feedback from them about just that that component as well, just to get a little bit more. But did I hear you say that there needs to be a motion to move this?
No, there's already been
Okay,
a
has it been
motion.
seconded?
The amendment to add the bullet, a process for staff participation involvement, has been moved and it has been seconded.
Okay, I missed that, sorry.
That's okay. Further discussion of that amendment? Roll call vote, please, starting with Councilmember Adino.
Councilmember Adina,
Yes.
Mayor Taylor,
Yes.
Councilmember Iyer,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
No.
Councilmember Briggs,
Yes?
Councilmember Omlawi,
Yes.
Councilmember Hayner,
Yes.
Councilmember Dish, absent, Councilmember Griswold,
Yes.
Councilmember Song,
Yes.
Councilmember Grand,
Yes.
motion carries.
Further discussion of the main motion as amended per prior. I have my views as to what we should do, but I'm also willing to relent on them, and so as to avoid conversation and controversy that I don't believe that we need. So although that language was distributed, I'm certainly not asking for it to be brought forward at this time. I guess I would say then, in that case, in that context, that I am excited about this process. I believe that we will, from this process, be able to have conversations with interim candidates, and that the interim candidate that we select will be a person who will be able to, in the event that that all parties are in agreement, that we'll be able to help move the city forward to continue to provide the services that residents expect, and to continue to lead the workforce in a way that moves it forward. Councilmember Griswold.
Yes, I think that we would be very fortunate if we were able to retain either one of these candidates. And given that they're highly competitive, one of my concerns is that if this goes over too long a period, we may lose both of them. So I have a question for Mr. Earl in terms of how concerned should we be with this 2-week timing? And do you think that the September 27th date for the decision is soon enough so that we shouldn't be concerned?
Well, we always advise that the sooner the better. But yeah, having said that, I don't believe that, or at least I'm not aware that any one of the two candidates has other prospects at this point.
Oh, okay, that's good to hear. Thank you. And again, both of them look exceptional on paper. I think it's very important that we are able to talk to them. And one of my concerns is just their energy level and stamina, given the challenges of Ann Arbor. So thank you.
Councilmember Hayner.
Yeah, thanks. So I just have a general question. I guess it would be for either admin committee or Mr. Earl. So we're getting a list of candidates kind of filtered through admin committee, and so how many candidates were brought in, and now we have 2 before us. I'm just curious how many and how many folks were brought in, and can the rest of us take a look at those other applicants if we choose to?
I think the number brought to the admin committee was a total of 5 that they looked at. And I know Mr. Earl had a number of other candidates, but he brought 4 candidates from his group. He can speak to that. And there was one other that was recommended by Dan Gilmartin of the Michigan League, and who Mr. Earl also knew coincidentally. So I believe that they considered 5 resumes.
Yeah, just to add to that, if I may, we received a total of 35 candidates from our short mini recruitment, and we presented, as Mr. Postima said, 4 candidates after vetting what we thought were the candidates that were best suited for the city.
Councilmember Grant.
I just wanted to add in response to Councilmember Hayner's question that I'm having difficulty recalling a time when there was this much consensus on the admin committee about the 2 candidates that we thought were best to bring forward. So you could look at them, but I really don't know to what end. There was really, from across the 5, just complete consensus on who the top 2 candidates were.
I guess to put it all in perspective, because I mean, I did when we had the 2 names came to us, I did what I did with the police chiefs or whoever, where I kind of did my own research on them, and I have to agree that both these candidates seem very qualified and have their different strengths and weaknesses and so on. Just like, but as you said, they both seem like very qualified candidates. So, I'm just trying to put it in perspective is all. Just, I know that when we have board and commission applications, which are a completely different thing, but we have this system for holding on to all that information. So I'm just wondering if it's, something we could look at. It's not necessary, but it would be of interest.
Councilmember Griswold.
Yeah, to address Mr. Hayner's question, this is just an interim position. And I can state that there was a vast difference. There were like two groups. There were two candidates that were highly qualified, brought significant experience, and then there was a second grouping of candidates that didn't even come close. So there was a huge gap between the two groups. So it was very easy for me to just select these two.
Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you. I'm looking at, two of my colleagues have now suggested the possibility of staff having the opinion of rejecting the concept of an external candidate altogether. And in light of those remarks, I just am looking at the resolution that we passed unanimously a month ago on August 16th, where I see that the Council Administration Committee unanimously recommended a search for an external interim. And so while I do appreciate that in the Administration Commission that you had a unanimous favor to one, and I accept that as a judgment that it is a value. I am very concerned about reducing the choice to one and then essentially opening up the binary choice, which now has been suggested, of either this option or no external candidate at all. That was what I was alluding to in my initial remarks, and then they were affirmed by Councilmember Redina and Councilmember Briggs' remarks. So I will not be supporting reducing the search to one candidate. If the Administration Commission or committee found it compelling that one candidate was stronger, I am confident that in a review of staff survey or a survey of staff opinion, they are likely to land on the same side, perhaps. So I will not be supporting this amendment.
There is no amendment on the floor.
Well, so we're just talking about the main motion then?
Correct.
Oh, okay. I apologize.
Councilmember Amlawi.
Thank you. And if we were to discuss that amendment, I agree with what was just said, but that's not the case. So I believe that those decisions ought to be and should be and were made in the admin committee to then give to this body privilege to discuss everything, but to come with one name wouldn't be right. And to go back to Councilmember Hayner's questions on the number of applications that came and why we were only seeing what we're seeing. And one principle that we try to follow and protect is the anonymity of the applicants and who's applying. And before we make their names public, be sure that those are the folks that we are serious about in interviewing and bringing in. So to protect their privacy and everything else that goes along with searching for a job in these cases. So, and I will agree with Councilmember Grand that there was unanimous support on these two names. I feel that for our community and complexity of an organization, that the names that are being brought forward had the experience, whereas the other names didn't really meet that bar. So they probably all were exceptional in their own ways, but for what we're looking for, we all felt that the two names that we bring forward fit our needs the best.
Councilmember Redina.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to clarify any confusion around my remarks earlier. I certainly did not intend to represent that staff could reject the idea that there would be an external candidate at all. What I believe I said, and what I hope to clarify, is that I am interested in hearing staff's perspective on the candidates, whether there are one or a multitude of candidates. And should this person not be a fit, we may, I believe I said this, may go back and look at other candidates. But just because one of these two may or may not be a fit does not mean that this would necessarily be the end of the process. Does not mean that if we do not select one of these people, that the search is over and the status quo remains. It simply means that we might have to look elsewhere. Either way, I think staff feedback is important on that. So while that conversation is over, I wanted to clarify my remarks because it seems that there was some confusion, and I apologize if it was on my part.
Councilmember Briggs.
Thank you. For my part as well, I'd like to clarify that that was not my intent, though I am perhaps a little bit more broad. I am seeking more broadly input in terms of just general staff comments. I think this is a good time to get input. So I welcome making it broad enough to be able to get a broad range of input in this process.
Further discussion on the main motion? All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. We now come to public comment general. Well, I should say it is approved, and Mr. Earl, Mr. Postma, thank you.
Mayor, I just need some clarification on what you've approved, because you added the third, but the direction, I believe, in the motion is for the process and the survey to be done. I believe it was through the admin committee, and I think that what you needed to amend for that is I'm not sure that the admin committee they may have some input as to council questions, but I think that to the extent that you've broadened it to staff and others, I think you actually should amend that the process in this needs to go or provide that direction to Mr. Guajardo in HR, and to the extent it's rounding up staff, that certainly would be, Mr. Fournier would be involved in that also. So I think that right now it reads, I don't have it in front of me, but right now it reads that issue. So I think you could provide further direction, but I think it's important here because we're moving on a fast process, and I don't want there to be any misunderstanding. I mean, the admin committee tomorrow is meeting, obviously, and they can provide some input, but I think that right now it has the admin committee process to be determined by the admin committee, and I need to clarify that. And
well, I don't know how this particular edition changes it. Basically, what I hear you saying is that the second to last resolved clause, which references the administration committee, should in fact never have met the administration committee, because we're not going to be engaged. We're not going to be coordinating the interviews. We're not going to be coordinating the interviews with staff. We're not going to be coordinating anything, since we don't coordinate. That it from the jump ought to have said the city's HR director, Mr. Guajardo. Is that correct?
well, I think that whether it ought to have said, or I think because it involves certainly council questions may be involved in with the admin committee to provide that input. I think that what could be said is coordinated through the admin committee, HR, and or with the assistance of acting city administrator. So some language to clarify that, or to just take it fully and have that process coordinated through HR or whatever else you want. But if you don't want any input from the admin committee on questions, then that can be clarified. But that's why it was put in. It was not in error. It was put in to let you explore that. And I was remiss for not raising it earlier, because I do think you need an addition to that.
So that perhaps that the evaluation be coordinated by the council administration committee and city staff, including the city's HR director, Mr. Guajardo.
Yes.
Do people need to see that in writing?
No.
I'm getting alternate views on that. Would someone type out those words and send them around, Ms. Beaudry? So the amendment for the second resolved clause, which reads that the evaluation process shall be coordinated by the Council Administration Committee and
And
city
the HR
staff
director, and the HR director.
and the City of Ann Arbor HR Director. So the addition of the words "and the Director of Human Resources."
And I do think it would be appropriate to put Mr. Fournier in because he will coordinate at least the staff participation.
That the process be coordinated by this Council Administration Committee, the acting city administrator, and the city's HR director.
That's right.
Has that been distributed?
And I would suggest that both of them will be at the admin committee tomorrow. And I think that any further direction can be given tomorrow.
Excellent. While that's being distributed, may I have a motion, please, to that effect? Moved by Councilmember Griswold, seconded by Councilmember Hayners. Is that amendment friendly to the body? I'm seeing no objections. That amendment is friendly. Thank you. Councilmember Griswold.
I just want to address
Yes.
process. And as we move forward and we get input from staff, which I think is very important, I want to make sure that input is through a survey document. We've received a couple of emails from our acting city administrator restricting communications between staff and council, which I fully support. And I want to make sure that we follow those guidelines in this hiring process.
Yes, it would be through a survey document. That's correct.
Okay, so we do not want staff to contact council members to provide information.
That's exactly right.
Thank you.
I realize that we've already voted on the resolution prior to seeking to amend it.
What I would do is just reconsider it, open it, and add that as an amendment.
Can I have a motion to reconsider? Moved by Councilmember Griswold, seconded by Councilmember Graham. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? The motion to reconsider is approved. Do we need to remove the motion, Mr. Postma?
You can remove it and then add that language that's already been.
Have a motion, please. Motion, please, with regarding to the resolution concerning the city administrator search process. Moved by Councilmember Lowy, seconded by Councilmember Griswold. Discussion? May I have a motion, please, to affect the amendment previously discussed? That is, the resolved clause shall now read that the evaluation process be coordinated by the Council Administration Committee, the acting city administrator, and the City of Ann Arbor's HR director. Moved by Councilmember Rodino, seconded by Councilmember Iyer. Discussion of that amendment. Is that amendment friendly to the body? Amendment is friendly. Further discussion of the main motion as amended. All in favor? Opposed? It is approved. Thank you all. We now come to public comment general time. Public comment general time is an opportunity for members of the public to speak to council and the community about matters of municipal interest. Speak at public comment general time, one need not have signed up in advance. Dial the number on your screen. That is 877-853-5247. 877-853-5247. Once you are connected, please enter meeting ID 942-1273-2148. 942-1273-2148. Once you're connected further, please enter *9 to indicate that you wish to speak. If you wish to speak, our clerk will identify you by the last 3 digits of your telephone number. When it is your turn to speak, you'll have 3 minutes in which to speak, so please pay close attention to the time. The clerk will let you know when 30 seconds are remaining and when your time is expired. When your time is expired, please conclude your remarks and cede the floor. Is there anyone who would like to speak at public comment?
Mayor, I don't see anyone up with their hands raised for this.
Seeing no one, public comment is closed. Other communications today from council? May I have a motion to adjourn, please? Moved by Councilmember Rodino, seconded by Councilmember Briggs. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? We are adjourned. See you in a little bit.
Mr. Earl, thank you for being here.